Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Be My Guest, episode number 10. We made it to double digits, and we made it with plenty of more great interviews already scheduled. So we are rolling right along here. We have a lot of great content coming to you, stuff we've already put out and stuff we're going to be putting out. So make sure you subscribe. Hit me up on the YouTube channel, hit the little bell so you get notifications every time I post, which is typically Tuesday mornings around 10 a.m. Eastern. Connect with me on LinkedIn, iTunes, Spotify. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can see it, you can listen. All I want to do is make sure that you get the content because we are having really great feedback from a lot of these conversations. And from what I'm understanding, it's really helping a lot of people to connect and to hear some of these stories that they can relate to. And that's really been the whole purpose of this in the first place. So I'm glad to hear it's coming along. We have another great guest today, Mr. Donald Hueckels is going to come on. He's an F&B professional based out of the Midwest, and he's got a really, really great story to tell us. And I think the really cool thing about this podcast, and we talked about it on last week's episode with Stephanie, is that Donald is another example of someone who I've never met prior to this. We haven't really spoken prior to this other than to schedule him coming on. So as we're doing these shows, I'm hearing their stories the same way you are for the first time. So all the reactions we have, all the questions, they really come out in real-time conversation because I'm going to be hearing it for the first time. So as you're hearing this, I'm hearing it. And so far, so good. And I have no doubt that Donald's going to bring another great story to the table. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Donald.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you. Happy to be here for episode 10.
Oh, well, listen, that's a milestone, right? And you are the lucky winner. So you got a lot of pressure on you now, though, Donald. You got to bring some good stuff.
I can handle it, I promise.
Oh, I have no doubts about that. That's really the cool thing about hospitality people, right? Is that I don't care who you talk to. I don't care what department they've worked in. I don't care what level they're at. I don't care how long they've even been in the industry. If they've been there for a month, somebody has a story to tell. There's always a good story that we have, whether it be from guests, from personal experiences, from professional experiences. There's always a story to tell. So getting content during these shows has really not been that much of a challenge. So
I imagine
it's my job is pretty easy. It's not like we're sitting behind desks all day. So there's always a story, but let's jump right into yours.
Okay.
How'd you get to hospitality? What brought you here and what got you to where you currently are?
So I'm from Boston originally. I started at 14. My dad was like, pound the pavement, get a job. I don't care what it is. So I got a job as a busboy, and progressively through the years, I worked into friendlies and mid dining experiences as a server, and then gradually after I was about 20 years old, I really moved into more fine dining and kind of tried to get a bang for my buck for the amount of time I was spending. So I worked in New York City, I worked in Boston, and then I ended up around 25, 26 in Florida, which is the tiki hut capital of the South. So it was a much more laid back atmosphere in Florida. And
less than New York and Boston?
A little bit.
I never would have thought that.
A lot of tequila sunrises.
Can you keep the grenadine on top? Because I always have trouble with that. I'm terrible at that.
No, I'm not a good bartender. I'll tell you that much. So I moved from serving into management, assistant manager, and then ultimately general manager of several restaurants in Southwest Florida. And now I am in Aspen, Colorado, which is amazing. And I'm just taking it easy as a back server.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you may have seen my first reaction when you said you're from Boston. So this next question is going to determine how the rest of this interview goes.
Okay.
Are you a Red Sox fan?
I don't care.
Okay. I can live with that.
Whoever wins.
I can live with that politically correct answer because I am a Yankees fan. We've had to cut the interview short. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Red Sox fans, Bostonites, please come on the show. We'd love to have you. We'll have a nice discussion. We'll rib each other a little bit. But Donald, we lost you for a sec. Let me pop you right out so we get your camera back on. There he is. All right, Donald, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So
trying to figure out this new age interview.
I know. Well, so we have this great program called StreamYard for anybody who doesn't know it. If you're into podcasting or trying to do some live stuff, StreamYard.com is a great place to look into. It's what we do for No Vacancy. It's what we do for Be My Guest. It gives a lot of broadcasting options. Quick, simple, and easy. So there's the free shout out to them. But Donald, you talk about Boston, New York, Florida. Now you're out in Aspen. And certainly very different markets. Maybe not Boston and New York so much, but certainly to Florida and to Aspen. So what went into that mindset of changing around? Why did you not want to stay in Boston? Was it a decision to go to Florida, or that was just the best opportunity? What got you to kind of move around?
I think it was like life experiences. I was in a relationship at the time where we were popping around. My parents ended up moving from Boston to Florida, so that kind of gave me an excuse to go down there.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of the industry is you can find work almost anywhere.
You're right. You're 100% right that there's in any part of hospitality, there's typically going to be a job somewhere for you. So did you find it challenging to make that move at first?
Yes and no. Like the Boston to New York, for example, like you said, was it was an easy kind of
Yeah.
transition because there's similar markets. Florida is definitely like a different. The work ethic in Florida has been very difficult. I found as in a management position.
Mm-hmm. So,
The work ethic's just not there.
okay. So from your personal life, how long did it take you to kind of get adjusted to that different style of living?
I'm a party guy, so not too long.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Everything in Florida is very casual and a good time. No, I think everything's a transition. I think the biggest transition was probably financially,
okay.
because obviously your cost of living is less in Florida. You make less.
Hmm. So what about from Florida to Aspen?
Florida Aspen, I was actually a part-time nanny for a family in Florida, and they have a place out here, and we came out over the summer during quarantine, and I fell in love with it, and I said, I'm heading this way, so I
So
did.
you just happened to go out there, I won't say by accident, but as part of a job, and you weren't in mindset thinking to stay, and you decided, hey, I want to get back out there. Awesome. Very
Correct.
cool.
So
So
I pounded the pavement. I hit. Go ahead.
the question for you, we're going to stop the show for a second. Are you hearing me delayed?
Yes.
Yes, you are. I can tell. Okay. So that's unfortunately sometimes that does happen with StreamYard.
So I just have to follow you versus.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to um have to email you a different link.
Okay.
I have to close this room,
You're
and
actually
then
on point now.
I'm on point now.
Yeah, it was just delayed for a few seconds before.
That's really strange. Okay. Well, what sucks about that though is I can't stop the broadcast. So that's the one thing. Yeah. So StreamYard, you can't stop and restart per se.
Okay.
So I'm still good right
So
now.
you want me to leave here and yeah,
So what I'm
you're
gonna
good.
do is we're just gonna restart the whole thing over, and I'm gonna keep it running. We're just gonna start from the top though.
Okay.
Give me 1 sec. 3. Hey everybody, welcome back to Be My Guest, episode number 10. Can you believe it? 10 episodes already? And guess what? We have so many great interviews on the way. So we're going to be doing this for a long, long time. I really appreciate the feedback. Real quick before we jump into our great guest today, check us out on iTunes, Spotify. Hit up my YouTube channel, hit the little bell. So if you subscribe and the bells hit, you'll get notifications every time I post. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Typically Tuesdays, 10 a.m. is when I'm putting those videos out. And I really, really appreciate all the kind words that I've gotten from everybody. So we're going to jump right into our guest today, Mr. Donald Hueckels. He is an awesome, awesome person. He's another person like Stephanie from last week that I've met through the hospitality family group. And he reached out, wants to tell his story, and I'm really, really happy to have him on. But the really cool thing about these types of interviews is that since I don't know these people prior to these conversations, other than just messaging and getting someone on the schedule, I get to hear their stories the same time that you do. So all of this is really organic. All this is really a free-flowing, natural conversation. And I'm really, really excited to jump into another one. So let's just get right to it. Donald, how are you today?
Hello, welcome. I'm
So happy to
fantastic. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you on. And again, we're talking about how we've never really met, we've never really talked. So this is the first time we've ever had discussions, other than the 5 minutes prior to starting this recording. But I'm really excited to hear about your hospitality experience because from that brief conversation that we had, it sounds like you have a really great insight into the business, especially from the moving around perspective. So I'll be quiet. Let's hear your story. Tell us kind of who you are and how you got into the business and how you got led to where you are currently.
All right. So my name's Donald. I'm from Boston originally. I grew up there. At 14, when it was time to get a job, my dad made me pound the pavement and sent me packing. And so I came home with a job as a busboy, and I started there in my hospitality career. Um, I worked as a busboy until I was 18. I was able to serve legally. And then I worked at a couple of mid-sized, I would say, restaurant chains to really kind of get my feet grounded. And then I moved on to fine dining around the age of like 22 to 25. I did some fine dining in Boston and New York City, which was amazing. And after a few years of that, I headed down to Florida, and it was a much more relaxed atmosphere there. So I through the ages of like 28 to like 30, 31, I was serving, very relaxed. And then I moved up to management, from assistant manager to GM of several restaurants there. And now I've headed over to Aspen at the ripe age of 39, and I'm a back server and I'm taking a back seat, which is kind of nice sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially right now where there's so much uncertainty going on, sometimes having that kind of, I won't say backseat because it's such an important role, but just a maybe a scaled down role per se to just kind of keep the mental self going. So Donald, you're a story of a lot of hospitality people. You've bounced around a little bit. So you went from Boston to New York to Florida. Now you're out in Aspen, Colorado. So kind of give me an idea of, I won't necessarily say the mindset that went into taking the move, but how did you transition yourself from the different lifestyles from, say, the Northeast down to Florida and then from Florida out to Aspen?
There's always some sort of transition period. I think financially, that's always what strikes you first, going into different markets. But I'm an easy breezy kind of guy, go with the flow. So for me, transition is not so hard. Um, did I answer your question properly?
Yeah, absolutely. So, because a lot of people, I think, in the industry, especially because of the current job situation in a lot of markets. So, I'll just use New York City, my area, for example. There's not a lot, right? And the jobs that are there are very few and far between, and they're heavily competitive with a lot of applicants and a lot of qualified applicants. So, people in my position or similar positions may need to make that relocation commitment that they may not have wanted to make in the past or are scared to make. So, as someone who has relocated to several different areas, what's the first piece of advice that you may give someone who's looking into that option?
Just from firsthand experience, I can tell you right now, me coming out here cost me a lot of money to move out here, get settled, money to get here. And I got here and we're at 25% capacity. So I think you really need to know what market you're going into, because I expected things to start to lift here prior to getting here.
Mhm.
And I was dismayed at that. So it's been a real struggle financially as far as like maintaining, day to day like necessities, because they can't keep the capacities per the state regulations. So I think that's definitely the biggest thing I would take into consideration at this moment.
And that is such a great point, Donald, because things are changing so much, right? And even if you're going to an area that may be less
Absolutely.
restricted right now, doesn't mean they're not going to get more restricted. I think California recently re-shut down a lot of a lot of the easing of restrictions that they had. I wouldn't be surprised if New York and New Jersey, Connecticut did something similar. But do you feel, taking the money situation out of it for a second, do you feel that um, how do you feel when you're making a decision like that, just from an emotional standpoint? You say you're a pretty easygoing guy. So do you really think through that decision a lot prior, or are you someone that just kind of says, hey, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go for it, and we'll figure it out when we get there?
I definitely, I'm kind of equal parts of that. I say I'm going to do it. I have to figure out the logistics first. So I commit to it in my brain that that's going to happen. And I have to find out the logistics in order to see if it's even realistic to make that move happen. Like, for example, here I had Aspen's a very high end area. A 1 bedroom apartment per month is like $4,800 a month. That's not realistic. But they have this great
Really?
program out here about employee housing. So, that was a huge factor in if I was going to move here or not, is like, what was my housing going to be? So I have a studio apartment and I'm fortunate able to bring my dog, and that's $850 a month. I mean, in
Wow.
Aspen, that's so
I
they do a lot of good, but those kind of logistics are obviously important.
So did you move out there for the job, or did you find your position after you moved out there?
I came out here and decided I wanted to move here. Applied for jobs while I was here. Dropped my
Okay.
business card at a few HR places, and then went back to Florida and tried to figure out the logistics.
Okay. Oh, so you went out there, started looking for positions before you moved, but then you came back to Florida, but you actually went out there physically and started to kind of hit the pavement and look for roles.
And that's how I got a call back. Honestly, I know it's in the age of all of this online applications, we all just get lost in them. So if
Mm.
you have an opportunity to go to speak with somebody on the ground, that's worth its weight in gold. I'm telling you.
Everybody listening, please take that word of advice because that is true. And now it may not be feasible. You may not be able to go to Aspen, Colorado and hit the pavement, but you can definitely pick up a phone. You can definitely reach out to people on LinkedIn. If you're trying to get in contact with a GM, call the front desk, ask for the GM's email. I've done that several times, and that's gotten me in the doors just because I've taken that initiative. And we spoke last week with Stephanie about that entrepreneurial mindset being approached in a job search. And Donald, that is that entrepreneurial mindset that you're taking that extra step, that you're not just,
You have to make your own magic.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, something similar, and the phrase came up, you make your own luck. And you made your own luck per se because you did the legwork to get there. And maybe you don't get that position if you're just sitting in Florida filling out online applications. So you don't, again, if you're out there listening and you're struggling for a job search, take that piece of advice. And again, you don't have to go physically there, but there's other ways to get in communication with people. But if you can get physically there and put yourself out there, I think that's a great thing that you did, Donald. So
Thanks. It's I understand. I understand with COVID, things are different right now, and you can't
yeah.
just show up at places. So, I mean, agreed, it was a different moment. But again, make those contacts, make those personal contacts. Agreed.
So, what are some of the, because again, I think a lot of people are probably going to be looking into the potential of relocating. Aside from obviously where you're going to live, how you're going to afford to get out there, what are some of the other logistical things you had to work through, whether it be from I would say financial, but from a personal standpoint?
What's your commute time going to be if you can't get like a really sweet spot that's close to your job? You know what I mean? Factors of like, is that going to stress you out getting to work? Because you have a commute time that's going to take up 2 hours of your day because you have to take a train. That's a big consideration, I think.
Mm,
Um, I think definitely. I think for some of like the people in more the hotel aspect of the business, it might be easy to transfer. Understanding who you're going to work with is going to make a big factor. I'd hate to get into a place and work with a bunch of people in a new location that aren't
yeah.
really like vibing. That's a big
Mm,
deal.
you,
Um,
so right. So how did you get a feel for that before you took the position?
I think that was a part of pounding the pavement, right? Like going in and dropping my business cards. Like, oh, I did a little research on the place and tried to decide if like that was going to be a fit for me. The older I get, or I should say, the more advanced in my career I get, I understand that it's more important for me to be happy with where I work and the people I work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, we're all living with enough stress as it is, even prior to COVID. So if you're at a place that is just causing you real mental negativity, it doesn't seem really tenable, and it's just not going to be productive to your personal life and your professional life. I mean, you tell me if you disagree with that, but that's how I feel.
Exactly. No,
So
100% true. And if you're unhappy at your job, it doesn't matter how much money you're going to make.
true. That right there is a great statement. That yeah, you could be making $200,000, but if you're hating your job for 40 plus hours a week, you're just going to be miserable. And I can, in a way, attest to that and to a certain degree.
We
So,
all can.
uh, so you mentioned you went out and handed out business cards, and I noticed you said business cards, not resumes. So, did you have personal business cards drawn up for yourself? Were they business cards from your job in Florida? What went into that?
They're for another business that I have outside of hospital. Actually, it ties in with hospitality. I'm also like a um I've been certified as a private jet flight attendant.
Oh,
So leads back into hospitality as well. And so I've been trying to build that business, and I had those business cards, and it has all my personal information on it, even though it's for another business.
right.
So it was a good drop of information.
So is that a company that you work for? Or is that your own personal business that you're developing?
It's my own personal business that I'm developing. It's basically contract work,
So
or
you would
you can go into. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say so you would contract potentially with a company like NetJets, and they would hire you for specific flights, but not necessarily as a full-time employee.
Well, they do both. So places like NetJets are places that can offer you benefits, 401k, all of those kind of great things. I can do independent contract work as well for like private families that don't necessarily use NetJets but have their own plane.
Got it. So how did you get into that?
Like I kind of previously said, I was a Manny for a little bit, a jack of all trades. That's what we do in
Yeah.
the hospitality business, right? Like
Yes.
we're
Yes.
dynamic. Um, and so she used to be a private jet attendant, and so she said I'd be great at it, and I went forward with the certification.
So, and this all kind of ties back into we were just talking about that entrepreneurial spirit in your job search. Clearly, you have an entrepreneurial mindset as you develop your own contract company, and that's obviously great. And yes, being dynamic, you cannot be in hospitality if you're not a dynamic person. It's just, especially as we're coming out of COVID. So, what are some? I guess first question: how long have you been doing this for? And second, what are some of the lessons you've learned from that you've taken to your jobs, your non-business owner positions?
Meaning like from the private jet industry.
Yeah, anything that you've learned from just being an entrepreneur, just trying to develop your own business and get yourself out there and expose yourself to business. And what have you taken from that you've been able to transition or translate to your again non-owned business jobs?
Um, I think that it's really thinking on your feet. You have to be situational, and you have to really understand what's going on around you. I think another part is definitely understanding the personalities that you're dealing with.
Mm,
Is a huge part of that, because if you can understand that and empathize with that, that allows you to kind of rise above the situation and actually manage it. You got to hustle. You got to. I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars I've spent trying to build my business, and it still isn't. I'm at a loss still, but you've got to keep pushing, and you got to keep moving, because if that's what you envision, I don't want to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. It's the truth.
no, and that's listen. I think it's freeing, right? It's liberating to be able to work for yourself and not have to rely on someone else's opinion of you because you are now in control of your own destiny, and that degree. Some people might not want to do that, and that's perfectly fine if you're not someone like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, to your point, Donald, you still have to work for yourself, even if you're working for somebody else, because the second that you stop providing value to that person, there's going to be a difficult conversation coming, right? So, and I love the point you're talking about is keeping pushing, and that it hasn't hit just yet, but it doesn't mean it's not going to hit. You're pushing through, and eventually, I really believe that it will hit. And a lot of times you see these memes and these different stories that a lot of times the success you want is right past that point where you feel like giving up. And that's the difference, is the people that give up at that point and the people that persevere through. So what have you been telling yourself, as and I relate this to people that are looking for jobs, because they're facing a lot of rejections and a lot of no's and a lot of negativity. What are some of the mental tricks that you've done with yourself to keep that positive mindset as you develop this business?
Definitely cocktails.
Yes. Yes, plenty of those.
That always will like reset you a little bit. No, it's more seriously, we all get to that point where we're feeling like we're hitting a wall, right? We're just hitting our head against the wall, and we need to keep pushing. And the answer is maybe that day, no, but tomorrow, try again. And then the next day, try again, because famous words of Curly from the Three Stooges was, "If at first you don't succeed, keep on suck until you do succeed."
I've
So,
never heard that, but I love it. If at first you don't
right?
succeed,
It's
keep
the
on
truth.
sucking until you succeed. I love that. Oh, I'm gonna have to look that one up and start putting that on myself, because I love that.
So it's it's the truth. It's day by day, and
And
something will eventually break.
we've had people on the show that they're still working, that are feeling stressed out. They're not working and they're feeling stressed out. They're developing a business and they're stressed out. They've had a business that has been severely impacted and they're stressed out. And the common mindset, the common theme to all these people like yourself that has come back, is to stay in the present, to take it day by day. Nobody's been like, well, figure out, focus on what you're going to be doing a year from now, and work, and stress over that. It's been, take it day by day, one step at a time. And as things get better, progress will start to get made as we
And
come
if
out of
you've no,
COVID.
and if you've noticed, the businesses that are really surviving are the ones that are thinking on a day by day basis. They have to be dynamic. They have to like change their strategy day by day. And those are the little places that are, I've seen some places that have been in business 30 years and they're going out of business because they can't continue the structure that they've been on. The businesses
Right.
that are like, okay, today we're in red, or today we're in orange, and they go with the flow. And those are the ones that are surviving.
So how would you, if you're speaking to somebody who is feeling really distressed from a lack of success in a job search, how would you explain that to them and help them translate that mindset from the business owner to the job seeker? If I'm getting,
For the
if I'm
person
getting,
looking for the job.
yeah, if I'm applying for positions, I mean, I am, but if I'm applying for positions and I'm applying for 15 positions a day, let's call it, and I'm getting rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, day by day by day by day, and even if I'm taking it one day at a time, every day is a rejection. How do I stay positive?
Um, I can only say from my own experience what I do, and I try to cope with it the best I can. I mean, the reality of it is there's nothing more disappointing than not even getting a decline, no response at all. How many
Mm.
of us have all sent in our resumes to 10,000 places and we don't even get a call back? It's it's brutal, but I think what helps me get through is that I realize that I'm not the only person in this position at this moment. So we have to kind of take a step back, and doesn't make it your life any less stressful. Believe me, I got bills to pay. I've got things to do, and this coronavirus is just unfortunately affecting our whole industry specifically. It has cut our travel, our guests, people that are willing to move around. We can't go to other countries. I mean, it's a huge impact worldwide. So take a deep breath and just try your best.
I love
Don't
that.
give up.
Yeah, I love that. Again, that's a common thing we've been hearing from some other people as well. So another thing I want to touch on, you talked about how you were GM of several restaurants in Florida, and now you're a back server, and you feel, I won't say relieved, but you feel comfortable in that role of taking a couple steps back and just really kind of going along right now, going with the flow per se. What went into that decision for you? That you were able to feel so comfortable with taking a couple steps back.
Well, I've always said, as a manager and to upper management, everything, I'm no different than the guy that busses the tables and sweeps the floors, because guess what? if he doesn't show up, I'm going to end up doing it anyway. So
Yep.
I'm not above any job in the restaurant. Like,
Yep. That's
I
true.
have to do them all. I mean, I've been in situations where I had to call my, like, I always make fun of her, my 10-month pregnant boss. The cook walked out in the middle of service and I was behind the line and I was like, I have no idea how to cook, but we're going to push through. So I called her, and her and I were back there. She was 10 months pregnant, and a little salt and pepper, a little garlic, and we got the food out. You know, that's thinking on your feet.
Yeah.
I just am no different than any other position in the restaurant. So I think that that's important. And taking a couple steps back, honestly, being a manager or a general manager, you have way more mental responsibility than you do having to just show up and make some money and leave. You know, do
Okay.
your job and go.
So, what would you say to somebody who is, again, having a trouble in a job search and may have some reservations about taking that step back? Maybe they don't feel confident in themselves. Maybe they feel that it's, I'm not going to say that they feel it's beneath them, but just that they feel that they've come too far to take a step back. But maybe that's the only position that they can get right now. Oop, lost Donald again.
Sorry.
No worries. So maybe that's the only position that they can get right now. So what would you say to someone who's feeling mentally blocked by that idea of going back 2 or 3 steps?
You gotta reevaluate, like, and think outside the box, because none of us are above any job. Not that, like, you want to go work for $7 an hour. I understand that, but at the end of the day, if you need to take a serving position and you were just an assistant manager, do it. It's going to make you money right now, and it's going to relieve any stress that you're having financially or a job. And when you open or close one door, another one opens. I mean, that's the truth.
Absolutely. And we touched on this again last week with Stephanie. There's also the idea of, listen, if you're in hospitality, and you touched on this before, Donald, you have to be very dynamic, especially coming out of COVID. So if you can't find a position in the realm you've been in, especially a quote unquote equal position in the realm you've been in, maybe this is an opportunity to take a step or two back in a different department, in a different discipline, and get that experience, right? So, I related it to, I have a lot of front office experience, but if I want to be a GM and I don't have any F&B experience, here's an opportunity to maybe go become an F&B supervisor, become an F&B assistant manager, learn
I
that
mean,
role. Go ahead. No, go, please.
no, that makes you more dynamic. I mean, even what I'm doing right now, I realize that there's no people coming to Aspen right now. I was planning to come out here and make a ton of money. I am on second interview for an office manager for a medical doctor,
Mm,
to do on the side while I'm here, because that's going to be more strategic income for me, and I'm still
mhm.
going to keep my back serving job a couple of days a week and balance everything out. You know, it's
And then you get that experience, right? And you never know where that's going to take you. That
exactly.
may take you, who just hypothetical scenario, this doctor may become the next Dr. Fauci,
Or the
and
people I'll meet coming into the office that are from this area that are like wealthy might lead me to a private jet kind of gig
mm,
that I want to have. You know what I mean? There's you have to really think outside the box.
I man, I couldn't agree more with that, Donald. And I love that you kind of relate that back to your business. That's that forward thinking mindset of an entrepreneur, that maybe that position is not the end all position, but you can turn
Correct.
something into that, even if it's something completely out of this medical office manager and private flight attendant are probably as far opposite of the spectrums as you possibly can get, but you're relating both of them and you're looking to profit off of both of them. And that's the mindset. That's the mindset. That's also what keeps, I think, people being positive, right? Is that feeling of hope. It's hard to stay hopeful when you're like, well, I can't find a job. That's it. But if you're thinking, okay, I can do this and turn it into this and focus on this, that's what keeps you going. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. And it unfortunately, more in the hospitality business, I think we get immediate gratification with a tip, right? So we kind of
Mm,
equate our success to that tip, which is true 100%. But me making these kind of outside moves, outside the box, are more long-term moves that I'm not going to see the repercussions of for 6 months to a year, maybe. So
mm.
I think that's going to be kind of the understanding as well, is that making a move, it's going to be turbulent, but it may pay off in the long run to be more profitable than what your immediate tip night is.
And I can equate that to another story that my friend Glenn Hausman says with No Vacancy. He's developed this great podcast. We have a lot of great people that are coming on it, but he talks about how 5 years prior to this, when he was first starting this whole thing out, he would go to all these different conferences and all these different cocktail parties and literally just hand out business cards. He wasn't getting interviews. He wasn't getting jobs. He was just handing out business cards and shaking hands. And he tells himself, I'm not getting anything now from it, but in 5 years, it will make it worth it. And now Glenn has direct connections to CEOs of pretty much every company out there and all these upper level executives that he's building his business on. So that groundwork he laid 5 years ago, just shaking hands for a living, is what's developed his business right now in 5 years from now. And it's the same kind of mindset as you're talking about, I feel.
Yep. And honestly, like, I mean, I know most of us in this industry where this isn't forever. I mean, how much can you kind of really grin and bear this for more than 20, 30 years, as long as we've all been doing it? I mean, I've been in the business 25 years and it's it's a grueling business, you know?
It's definitely not for the weak, that's for sure. If you're in this business for that long, you one have a strong passion for it, you love it, and you are a strong individual. It's just the way it is. It's just, you know. So you're the first person,
100%.
Dom, that we've talked to that has really been on the full restaurateur side, the full F&B side, where you've come out of restaurants versus hotels or versus a restaurant in a hotel. What do you what are you seeing? Because again, a lot of the people that you said, we talk about restaurateurs are heavily involved in tips and certainly tipped employees' wages are not really livable even without COVID. So what are some of the struggles that people from that side of the hospitality spectrum are going through outside of the financial obvious ramifications?
I mean, it's a trickle down effect, right? I think that people want to work. They want to see their guests. They want to see their regulars that they've been seeing
Mm,
for years and know them and have that special relationship. I think that's a big loss for people too. It may seem minuscule to people outside of the industry, but we all know those individual guest experiences that really carry you to the
yeah.
next guest to you see them again.
Hmm.
I think there's a big loss for that on both sides. Yeah.
So what would you say to someone like that? Because I couldn't agree with you more on that statement. And I've been a bartender, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in hotels, and developing those relationships with all of those different roles. You're right, it does carry you through some of the more difficult times because you can really build a friendship. It's a professional friendship, but a friendship. And I still have people that I talk to that were guests from my first hotel that I knew that I met and I haven't seen in 6, 7 years. We still, chat on LinkedIn, just how you do it. And that's the type of relationship you're talking about. So what would you recommend to people like that, whether it's a server, a bartender, F&B manager, whoever it may be that's missing those relationships? How would you recommend them get through this? What are some of the things maybe you've done to get through that lack of relationship connection?
I'll tell you, I've had guests that I met being a manager at a restaurant. They ended up coming on my honeymoon. So you never know where like these relationships can really take you. During this time, I know it's difficult. I mean, if you have their contact information, I haven't done this personally, but maybe hit them up for 10 minutes on like a FaceTime and just checking in, making sure you're doing good. Those people are going to come back to you, assuming your place is going to open back up and that you guys are going to get back to normal business. I mean, those people will remember you and tip you until the day they die, all day long.
No, you're
but
100%.
they appreciate it too.
Oh no, and they're feeling it as well, right? The same way that we've developed that relationship with them, they've developed it with us, and they're probably feeling that loss as well.
Correct.
So of course, there's certain professional lines you can't cross. There's certain um, places you can't go. But if you could just have a nice platonic conversation with someone, that may be something that really
Five
gets you through
minutes,
the next month.
not
Yeah,
nothing crazy.
yeah, it just might get you through. May get you through them, may get them through it. And again, it will establish that relationship more than it ever could have been before. And they're going to come back to you the second that your
Hundred
establishment
percent.
reopens.
100%.
So another thing with hospitality people, especially people that are really invested in the industry, is they're incredibly loyal. Especially when they find a place that they really feel comfortable. You talk about company culture and coworkers, and if you find a place where you believe in the culture, you enjoy your coworkers, a lot of people are going to be very loyal to that place.
Correct.
What would you say to someone who really wants to be loyal to a specific place or a specific company or a specific team, but is not able to get back to that team right now, and they're really struggling with the difference or the decision between, do I expand out and get an opportunity, or do I wait and get back to where I feel more comfortable?
I think that's more of like a person on person basis, as like what's good for you, do you. You got to do what you got to do, and if you want to be loyal, then I always find that upfrontness works the best from receiving and giving, from a management position or
Mhm.
from an employee position. Tell them like, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. This is what I need to do in order to pay my bills. I want to come back here and I want to make money with you, but I just need to survive right now. Being that honest with somebody, if a manager doesn't like empathize or like understand that, then you're probably not in the right place anyways. I'll tell you that right now.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more with that. So you've been in that role. You've been a manager in that leadership role and having teams under you. What are going back to your management experience, what would you be doing right now with your team to keep them engaged, even if they're not actually working?
Um, this is where I probably would tie in more of my personal like kind of methodology versus like what the corporate's telling me. But like I'd
Mhm.
kind of like have my team out connecting like as still as a team, maybe volunteering, maybe doing like a Thanksgiving drive or like a Christmas
Mm.
drive, or like still like having that connectivity together, because you guys obviously are a team. But again, thinking outside the box, knowing that we can't make money, at least maybe we can volunteer a little bit together and still maintain our balance.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, that's a great idea. I never even thought of that. I don't have a team under me. In my last two jobs, I was revenue management, so I didn't have a team under me. So that's a really interesting idea, because not only are you're getting everybody together, working together, but you're continuing to serve the community, which is what you do in your regular role anyway. So you're just continue.
Exactly.
It's a continuation of your
It's a
relationship.
win-win.
That's all. And Donald, that's a great idea. So listen, anybody out there that has a team under them or is in a leadership position, and you're struggling with that mindset of, how do I keep everybody together? That's a great idea. It's a win-win. And as long as you can do it safely and you're not putting anybody at risk, of course, and you're following legal guidelines, and I'm sure any company or organization you volunteer with will keep that in check for you. I don't see why you wouldn't do that.
Hmm.
I think that's a great idea. So, Don, we're coming up on time
Also,
here.
weekly Zoom cocktail hours. Sorry.
No, but you're not wrong there, Donald. And that's what as we're doing No Vacancy, we speak to a lot of different companies, and you can see some of the differences in companies that are taking that extra effort. So one company we spoke to, they do a weekly podcast where their executive team is speaking to their team members, whether they're working, furloughed, whatever their status is. It goes out to all their team members. Another one is doing monthly town halls, where like a Zoom call, and the CEO gets on the town hall, and again, furloughed or currently working, can come on and ask questions. And it's all internal, obviously, but it's also a place where everybody can kind of get together, and those executive level members are exposing themselves to their team in an effort of connecting with their team.
Super
So
important for leadership.
yeah, absolutely. So what would you now? Let's flip it again. You're working line level position. What would you want to tell your leadership that your needs are? What you want to see from them?
How would I address it, or what would I request my needs?
So
Sorry.
what would you be looking for from that kind of perspective? Someone who is either not sure what's going to happen, is concerned about what's going to happen, is kind of in and out or burned out. Just how would you express your needs to your leadership?
Um, I think it goes back to my previous answer of like really just being upfront. Like you address everything in a very mature, like professional manner. because we can be upset about things, but we can't let our emotions kind of get ahead of us, right? So
Mm.
we have to address things in a very professional manner while still getting the same point across. Communication is just huge, whether it's from the top down or from the bottom up. Like if we're not communicating, then we're not really being a team like we need to be.
Great. That's a great way to end that, Donald. I couldn't say that better myself. So I've really, really
Thank
enjoyed this
you.
conversation. I mean, some really great ideas coming out of this, especially with the volunteering. I love that. So, Donald, I know you're trying to develop your business. I don't know how many of my listeners are in the position to be owning their own personal jets, but if you do happen to know somebody that does, or if you have a relationship with someone in that role who, hey, may need be in the services, Donald, where can somebody find you to reach out to you and maybe help you grow that business?
You can contact me at my website, which is luxuryairconcierge.com.
LuxuryAirConcierge.com. I love that. We're going to put that up there in the show notes as well. So make sure if you have anybody in a position
I
that is
appreciate that.
flying privately, what was it? Luxury Air. What was it again, Donald?
Luxuryairconcierge.com.
LuxuryAirConcierge.com. I love, love, love that. All right, Donald. I really appreciate your time. I love some of the stuff you brought. Any final words?
Thanks for having me. And everybody, again, take it one day at a time. We're going to push through this, and you just got to be dynamic and come out on the other end.
Beautiful. But couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks so much, Donald. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
I know I said a lot, but man, wow, what another great conversation. Donald really, really just brought some great ideas to the table that again, maybe you hadn't thought about because you're feeling stressed out, you have so much work on your plate, and taking those ideas and thinking outside the box, that's that again, that we're probably going to refer to this a lot on a lot of episodes, but that's an entrepreneurial mindset that I think a lot of people need to try to work on as we kind of move through COVID, because that's what's going to make you stand out. So, as always, appreciate all of you for being my guest. Thank you today for Donald for being my guest. Make sure you check out his website. Again, if you have any type of opportunity for him, please reach out to him. He's a great guy, as you just heard. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with another great show. If you want to be part of the show, if you want to be my guest, again, LinkedIn, Facebook, reach out to me. Love to have you on. This is an open forum to anybody who wants to join and just tell your story. So, LinkedIn.com/IN/DMIGNANO. Obviously on Facebook, David Mignano. Just search me. You probably find me. I'm the guy with the weird beard. And other than that, we will have another great show next week. As I said, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great week.